Hello and welcome to this Mirror Facebook Live on all the cost of living payments still to come this winter and what to do if you've not had your payments yet from earlier in the year. I'm Sam Barker, a money reporter on the Mirror. I'm very grateful to be joined today by consumer champion Martin James, who will be helping take us through this crucial subject. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Sam. Good to see you.
And you. So today we're going to be talking about everything you need to know about the government help that's come down the pipeline with the cost of living, both the payments that you should have had and the ones which are due, throughout the rest of the winter. We know from Mirror readers emailing in that many of you still haven't had the cost of living help that was due much earlier in the year. So stay tuned and we're going to take you through what you need to do if you're in that position. But we're also here to answer your questions on this subject. So if you've got anything you'd like to ask us about the cost of living, just post it in the comments and we will do our best to answer you throughout this session. So Martin, perhaps if we start at the beginning with a bit of a recap, what cost of living help have we already had so far this year, please?
Well, there have been so many initiatives, Sam. I think, and so much has happened over the last few months. All of the viewers today must be pretty confused about what's going on. I know that we certainly have to do an awful lot of checking just to keep on top of things. So I'm going to fly through some of the benefits and the payments and support schemes that have been paid out already, just in case you're not sure whether you've had them or whether you should have had them. So cast your minds all the way back to May, when the Chancellor, who is now the Prime Minister, announced that there would be a cost of living payment. That's a £650 payment that you would get in two halves to get you through the cost of living crisis. Now, that was only applicable if you were on certain benefits. Just to run through those very quickly again, it's universal credit, income-based job seekers allowance, income-related employment and support allowance, income support and pension credit. I was reading those. I didn't memorize them. There's quite a lot to remember. Now, you had to, in order to qualify for this payment, you had to be in receipt of one of those benefits from the 25th of May, 2022. Now, that payment should have been made to you. It would have been £326, and that should have already gone through to your account for between, I think, 14th to the end of July for most people. And that will have been paid through the usual channels that you receive your benefits through from that specific office. Now, there were quite a lot of benefits that didn't qualify for the scheme as well. It's very, very complicated. But as a general rule, if you had savings of over 1,600 quid, then you wouldn't have qualified. Now, this payment was divided into two halves. And that was just so that the government could check that it was reaching the people it needed to, whilst working out that other people who were entitled to certain other things like tax credits and pension credits, which we'll come to in a moment, that you would receive those. So the second payment is due to be arriving soon for that. But there were other payments that were also being made as well. So there was the pension credits and tax credits. Pension credits should have hit your account around about the same time. That's 14th to the 31st of July. Tax credits, they should have been hitting your accounts around about the 2nd to the 7th of September. Now, as Sam said, we have been hearing an awful lot of reports from people who've been saying that they haven't necessarily received the payments. There are lots of reasons why this could be happening, and we'll come on to that in a moment.
Perfect. And I actually think, thank you very much, Martin. I think as well, there's a big batch of payments going out this week. Is that correct?
That's right, yes. Now, the big dates are from the 8th to the 23rd of November, and that's when we'll start to see the latest batch of payments. So that's the second part of the main cost of living payment. So that's due to be going through. And we'll also start to see over the coming weeks as well, the second half of the other payments that we were referring to as well. There are still a few dates waiting to be confirmed. But for the most people in receipt of one of those key benefits, you should start to receive that second payment. It's £324, just so you know what you're looking for. And that should start to arrive within your accounts from now right through to the next few weeks.
Fantastic. Now, for anybody who's just tuned in, thank you very much for joining us. This is sort of an interactive session. We'll be talking you through all of the cost of living help, which is still coming down the pipeline throughout this winter, and also what to do if you've not received money that you're due from earlier in the year. But we're also here to do a sort of a Q&A. Thank you to everybody who's already posted. If you've got any questions for us, please do feel free to pop them in the comments. We'll kind of keep an eye on that, and as we go through, we'll kind of jump on your questions and kind of tackle them one by one, as many as we can fit in. Now, I just wanted to talk for a moment about some of the other cost of living help, which is still due later this year. Obviously, as Martin said, the cost of living payment for people with tax credits, that is still coming down the pipeline. I think it's also important to home in on a bit of help for pensioners. So pensioners have got something called the Pensioner Cost of Living Payment, which pretty much does what it says on the tin, and it's supposed to help cover rising costs this year, and the biggest one being energy bills. So if you're entitled to winter fuel payment for this current winter, that normally ranges between about £100 to £300 just by itself. You will get an additional £300, and that's lumped in with the winter fuel payment. So you'll get this, and it's a tax-free, it's a one-off payment. In order to get it, you need to be over state pension age, so that's 66 or above, and you need to have lived in the UK for 1 day during what's called the qualifying week, which was the 19th to the 25th of September of this year. And there's also more help coming down the pipeline with energy bills. So much earlier in the year, the former Chancellor, as Martin says, now Prime Minister, so there'll be a £400 rebate for energy bills, and this is going out to any household which is in charge of its own meter. So exactly how you'll get that money varies depending on which provider you're with and how you pay for your energy. We've got a little bit more we're going to come on to, but in short, most providers are splitting it into 6 payments. They started in October, so they'll be running into 2023, and you should get either £66 or £67 off a month on your energy bills. So that is still coming down the pipeline as well. Now, on the subject of energy, Martin, what should you do if you're struggling to redeem your energy vouchers, please?
Well, this is a really, really good question, Sam. And actually, over the past week, we started to hear from lots and lots of people who are falling into 2 camps. They're either saying that they're not receiving the vouchers, or they've not been able to redeem them, or they've not been able to work out how they actually get the credits. Now, as is so often the case with schemes like this, it's ludicrously complicated. If you really want to have a look at the full information, if you type in energy support scheme and gov.uk, you'll get the full list of kind of who gets what and how it works. But it all comes down to how you actually receive your energy. And for most people, if you're the tricky thing is if you're a prepayment customer, that's the key or the old card meter that you may remember. And that's basically where you have to buy credit in advance to charge up your meter. Now, just to confuse things, there are smart meter versions of those meters, and there are the more traditional type as well, where you have to get the credit at a shop. So if you've got the smart type, in other words, if the meter's automatically sending updates through to the energy provider, then you should have these payments credited to you once every month in line with what your energy provider is advising. So that should go directly onto your meter. But do double check. There's nothing wrong with asking the energy company to confirm that that's actually happening. It should be on the display, though, I'm reliably informed. But many people are telling me that they're not seeing it. So go to the energy provider. Now, if it comes down to the vouchers, these even more complicated. These are going to be sent to you either by text message, and I know we're always telling you to not click on text message links. I do apologize, but some of the vouchers might come by text, by email, or by post. If you're worried about clicking on a random link, then again, speak to the energy company to confirm that that link is legitimate. Those vouchers can then be taken down to your local top-up point. This is what's known as the pay points thing. It's that thing in most shops, I think there's about 40,000 of them UK-wide, where you can make payments, where you can charge up your energy key as well. And you should be able to redeem them there. Now, I've spoken to all of the energy companies I could get hold of this morning. They are telling me that those vouchers should be cashable in all of those pay points. If it doesn't work for some reason, or the voucher isn't being recognised, they will reissue you with a voucher straight away. So get on the phone, stay in the shop if need be, because they can text it through to you. But that's the best way to get things sorted out quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Martin. Now, I was going to give you, let you catch your breath, and we're going to take a question here from Dave Ryder. Thank you very much, Dave. So Dave says, my mum has just had a letter saying she's getting £500. She's received her £324 in the last couple of days. Would her extra come in as a separate payment, or should she contact DWP to let them know there's been a mistake? Now, Dave, thank you very much for this. I think from what you said there probably has been a mistake. So if your mum qualifies for the cost of living payment, that should be £650 in total. So she should have had the £326 payment earlier in the year and the £324 payment, which is coming out from this week. So if she's been told she's getting £500, it sounds like there may be a mistake there. And actually, one thing to mention is that there have been an awful lot of scams related to the government cost of living help. You know, I'm sure a lot of people who've tuned into this call have seen it. I probably get about 2 of these spam texts every single day. It is absolutely worth making sure that she, is contacting the DWP office itself, whoever it is that normally handles her benefit, and hopefully they'll be able to take her through that process. But just because the figure that you're mentioning is £500, that's the bit that kind of rings alarm bells for me. So I think from what you said, it's either a mistake or it might be a scam. So that would be my advice. And thank you very much for asking. Again, we're here to answer your questions. Please do feel free, absolutely bombard us, and we will we'll kind of tackle them one by one. Now, I think it's also important, Martin, so if we sort of move on to, if you're due a cost of living payment from earlier in the year, maybe the £326 or whatever it might be, what should you do if you're due something and you haven't had it? What steps should you take?
Well, the advice is quite sparse on this one. And again, I've been in touch with the various departments with the government today to see if there's any further clarification. Once again, if you go to the government website, it's gov.uk. And if you type in cost of living or guidance cost of living, you'll get the full breakdown of precisely what is due to you and also what to do if things go wrong. But all of the people I've spoken to have said that the channel that you need to use is whichever organisation or office pays your benefits, that's the office that you need to contact in order to chase down what's going on with the benefit. Now, again, there are lots of reasons that could have gone wrong. The government have been using a very complicated automated system for identifying who qualifies and who doesn't. And as we know, sometimes the computer does say no and it should be saying yes. So you simply need to find a human being that you can speak to, not always the easiest task in the world, who can actually look into what's going on. Just to prep yourself a little bit in advance, because they will ask you a few questions. Just remember to write down just on a piece of paper when you've been in receipt of benefits, just so you can remind them that you were in the 2 separate qualifying periods. That's before and up to the 25th of May, and also anything from August onwards. You should qualify you for the second period. So just have that information to hand.
Perfect. Thank you, Martin. Now, just going back very quickly to Dave Ryder, because Dave says, yeah, that's correct about the 2 payments so far. I've checked her letter. It's to do with the pensioner cost of living top up. So in that case, I sort of assume that what's happening is she's getting that £300 pensioner cost of living payment and then £200 in winter fuel payment. So that, yes, it will come in as a separate payment. Normally, winter fuel payment is paid in November or December, and the government normally say that you should get the payment by the 13th of January next year. So hopefully that answers your question. So yes, it will be 2 separate chunks, and she's very likely to get the as you say here, she's already had the 324, so she's still waiting on that £500. Should get it in the next 2.5 months. So a question also from Jenny. Thank you, Jenny. She says the £500 is the yearly heating allowance payment. Normally £200, but £300 extra this year. All OAPs get it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, 324 is a separate payment if you're on certain benefits. There's no mistake. She's entitled to it all. Yeah, thank you very much, Jenny. Completely agree. I think the only bit I would probably pick up if you're an OAP tuned into this is not every OAP is eligible for that benefit, unfortunately. But yeah, it is a fantastic thing for the people who do get it. So I also just wanted to move on to talking a little bit about the council tax rebate. So this is a bit of a blast from the past. This was one of the first packages of support the government announced way back earlier in the year, and it's worth £150. Now, the overwhelming majority of households have already had that payment, and they would have had it automatically. However, there are some households who actually need to apply for it. Quite a number, 300,000 households still haven't done this, and time is running out. So the government have already extended the deadline to do this twice. So I'm going to talk you through exactly how it works. So this was a £150 payment. It was first made available in April for households in council tax bands A to D. So if you pay your council tax by direct debit, which most people do, you should have had that £150 automatically. If you don't pay by direct debit, then you have to apply for the money, and you have to do that by the 30th of November. And this was the deadline, which was recently extended. So how do you do that? You have to contact your council, which is something that obviously that most people normally try to avoid doing. Each council will handle this in a slightly different way, and the way that you apply to your council will be on their website. So if you go on their website and you type in, council tax rebate, you should find a page where it will tell you how your council will handle that process. If you're not sure what your local council is, if you go on the gov.uk website and you put in your postcode, it will pull up the council for your area, and you can go from there. But this is very much a sort of a use it or lose it deal. If once that 30th of November deadline passes, the government have said quite strongly that they won't extend it any further. So it is well worth doing. If you are in council tax bands A to D, you haven't had your £150, you don't pay your council tax by direct debit, you will need to go ahead and claim that. And I just wanted to talk about some of the help available if you don't fall into any of the groups we've already spoken about. So if you've been tuning into this and you've listened to us talking and you thought, well, none of this applies to me, there is still some help available to you. And this is called the Household Support Fund. It's a catch-all one show in town for anybody that falls through the cracks of anything we've just talked about. It's a pot of government money. It's handed out mostly by local authorities, although some utility companies do also hand this money out. Government have topped this up. It's now worth the thick end of £2 billion, and it's being distributed normally as cash or vouchers. Now, I often describe this as a bit of a postcode lottery, because depending on where you live in the country, it will kind of vary as to what you get from your local council. We've heard of cash payments of up to £300, or you might be getting vouchers, for example, that you might be able to spend in supermarkets, things like that. The idea of these grants is that they're supposed to help people on low incomes pay for everyday essentials. So unfortunately, you do have to prove that you need the money, which for some people, obviously, even if they're in that position, there's a sense of pride at stake. They don't necessarily want to do that, but unfortunately, that is how this particular system works. And local councils, again, it's a postcode lottery. They set the hurdle at different heights, depending on the area. But if you go on the website for your local council, they will talk you through exactly how it works, the documents you need to submit, and the money is government money. Is there for absolutely anybody. You can also, if you're on any of the benefits that we mentioned earlier, you get any of the other cost of living help, there is nothing stopping you from applying to the Household Support Fund. The government launched it basically as the kind of safety net for everybody who wasn't eligible for some of the help we've already mentioned, but there's nothing stopping you from applying for it. Now, I think, unfortunately, that's probably is almost all the time that we've got today. I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found that helpful. A big thanks also to Martin James for all your help today. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back next Thursday at 1 o'clock with another Cost of Living Facebook Live. I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you.